You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the double-edged double bill. This week, Japanese cinema has us asking, why don't vampire and Frankenstein girls play nice in hell? Each week, Adam, Thomas, and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then, both will have to pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Let the chaos begin! And I am Thomas Mariani saying, Konnichiwa.
And I am Adam Fuckbomber Thomas.
Fuckbombers! Yeah, that's what we are. Oh, yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But this week, in honor of nothing, really. We just wanted to kind of do something different. We've done foreign films before, Adam, and foreign for us, of course, is not in the English language because we are American plebs, as it were.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, and we briefly discussed, do we do, like, general foreign movies? And it's like, no, that seems too broad. And we decided, let's do a specific sort of country, because every country has some form of cinema, Adam. To some degree, even if it's not the most high quality in terms of, traditional production. Every country has some form of cinematic expression to some degree. And I think, obviously, we decided to go with Japanese cinema here, and they have definitely a rich tapestry of film, for sure. Yeah, no, I'd say they're one of, wouldn't you say, the top 5 that produce film? Outside of America, I would say, yes. It's like them and China, South Korea, obviously, in terms of specifically Asian countries. But even places like France and Germany have their own stuff. Right. Sweden, of course, has a lot of great stuff as well. And obviously, we want to get to some of those at some point, for sure. We would like to, when on a slow, especially a week where there's nothing really to connect anything to, we can dip into that foreign stuff, because we're not uncultured, are we, Adam? I'm kind of an uncultured swine. I gotta be honest. I'm a bit, like, slightly clean because I, watch Criterion movies occasionally. but I'm not above going into the slop with you. Not at all. Right. And admittingly, with the 2 Japanese films we're going with today, neither of them are Kurosawa, necessarily. Oh, I'd say that's definite. Not quite, because we're doing a couple more recent films. We are, for those of you who might be new, especially if you're on the ESO network and you might have just discovered us last week, welcome again. At the end of our last episode, we did some picking that was random, where Adam had 2 bad movies and I had 2 good movies, and we each assigned those numbers between 1 and 10. And then our guest, Lance Langford, last episode, ended up picking numbers between 1 and 10, and we got whichever one that got closest to, got us our double feature for the evening. And for my good pick, we have Why Don't You Play in Hell, which is a film released in 2013 in Japan. And then we got a movie for Adam called Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl. Yeah. We'll really dissect that in a bit, but we're going to start with our good feature. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we do, though, we do also want to emphasize we're a couple, as we mentioned, of uncultured American swine. So any Japanese person potentially listening, 1, we're sorry we're going to mispronounce a bunch of names. And 2, there's maybe some cultural stuff we don't quite get the context for. But that doesn't mean we can't appreciate the films or not at the same time. Right. Yes, of course. So, with that being said, let's get into Why Don't You Play in Hell? Yoi. 全力激しりレッツゴー! So, Why Don't You Play in Hell, as I mentioned, came out September 28, 2013 in Japan. It was released over here in the States via Draft House Films, which is how I discovered this film in college. Around the time of, like, the start of this decade, the Alamo Draft House started doing movie releasing. And they released a bunch of interesting, weird movies, like the Act of Killing, for example, that documentary, or a few other like weird culty things like this, which is directed by a guy named Sion Sono. And basic plot, for those of you who might not have seen it, is the movie follows a couple different storylines, but the two main ones are there's this group of young filmmakers, renegades, as they are called. The collective is the Fuck Bombers.
Yep. Which is amazing, because I don't understand why.
They're fuck bombers, Adam. They're bomb, and they fuck hard.
Oh.
I mean, clearly, obviously.
I guess you just laid it out. Yep.
Self-explanatory. It's all in the name. But there are a bunch of kids who 10 years prior to the main events are like making small movies. And while they're making a movie with this random street tough who they want to turn into their Bruce Lee, they encounter the aftermath of a yakuza attack, which involved the attempted murder of this main yakuza boss named Mudo, as played by Jun Kunimura, who you might know from the first Kill Bill film. He gets beheaded by Lucy Liu.
Yeah, he's Boss Tanaka.
Yes, and he's also in Audition as the friend, who's just like, hey, I want you to do an audition.
Oh, God, that is him.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, boy.
He's mostly in the part that's like the romantic comedy of that movie, before it switches. The first of two Audition cast members who will be in our features tonight, interestingly enough.
Mm-hmm.
But he is this Yakuza boss who his wife ends up getting put in jail after the Yakuza try and assassinate her, and she proceeds to beat the fuck out of these dudes in an awesome opening sequence. And their daughter ends up coming across them as her mother has turned herself in. I love it. It's just like, call somebody, and the knife is in the table. This little girl is a burgeoning actress after she's been in a popular toothpaste commercial with a song you will not get out of your head. I assume you haven't, Adam.
It's so annoying, too, though.
It's great. I know, right? It's amazing.
Bad.
It's such a great fucking jingle.
Oh.
Gnash your teeth, Adam. With all your might.
Gnash your teeth with all your might. Let's fly. What?
Oh, it's the perfect Japanese commercial. It's so great. Mm-hmm. So this little girl ends up finding out, oh, my mother's been thrown in prison after attacking all these Yakuza and causing a huge ruckus outside in the middle of town, and she's put in jail for 10 years. And so we cut to 10 years later, and she's about to be released from prison, but she had all these aspirations about, like, oh, our young daughter, Mitsuku, is going to end up being a big star, and she's going to be in her first film, right? You told me this, Dad. You told me that she was going to be in her first movie, and we're going to screen it after I get out. And he's like, yeah, right. That's what we're doing. And so he enlists the Yakuza, and then eventually this film crew to make a movie out of a big raid they're doing against the rival gang leader, who is also this person who encountered Mitsuku during this big attack they had at the beginning of the movie and has a weird obsession with her.
Yeah, really odd.
Really odd. Especially as the movie goes along, they reveal a bit more. That gets really twisted. But this is a movie I saw in college, and I just remember hearing, like, oh, this is one of those underground, like, darlings of when it was released here in 2014. I was very curious about it, and I loved this movie, and I shared this movie with so many friends who all loved it as well. And revisiting it, I still really enjoy the hell of it. It's a weird gonzo production that goes into really bizarre twists and turns, but yet is still very genuine at the same time, and I love how it really balances that for me. But Adam, this is the first time you've seen it, right?
Yes, it is.
And what'd you think of it?
Alright, first hour, I'm like, uh-oh. I was not into it the very first hour of the movie. And I was getting worried. I'm like, oh, shit. I know Thomas really likes this movie. I'm going to get on here and then be like, no, not for me. The second hour, however, is so batshit off the walls crazy. The raid scene alone makes this movie worth it.
It's less a scene, and it's more of like the entire third act of the movie.
It's fucking carnage.
Yeah.
Some of the craziest shit I've ever seen. And I found myself laughing out loud at a couple of it. Like when, oh God, I can't think of his name. The one who becomes her boyfriend, supposedly. And they think is the director.
Right, Genji, yes.
Yeah, when he gets his fucking hand cut off, and because he's all coked out, and he looks down and starts just screaming. I started laughing so hard. And then, when all the cops are there and the sword slowly pokes through the rice paper, and it just keeps going forward, and it's him again. I lost my shit. It was so funny. No, I really, really ended up really liking this movie, and I was worried that I wasn't going to. And the guy who plays the rival yakuza member, the one that they film who has the obsession with her,
right?
He stole the movie for me. That fucking grin of his whole face distorts. Yeah, no, he was excellent. I really, really did enjoy this movie.
So even with, like, your reservations about the first hour, did it end up at least making up for that, or did some of that stuff actually work better in context of the ending of the movie?
The second half made up for the first half. I'll put it that way. Yeah, the first half was all building up the characters, because there is a lot of characters in this movie.
Yes.
There are, basically 3 or 4 separate storylines, but then they all just come crashing together in the second half. I have a couple questions, about the ending.
Okay.
So let's get into a spoiler thing real quick.
Well, yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, we both do at least recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. So were they all dead? Or at the end when they're all bandaged up and everything, was that they survived?
I think the movie's dealing with a sort of magical realism by that point. It's sort of in this weird fever state to where it doesn't really give a shit.
It's him running at the end, and then maybe he was seeing that shit in his head while he was running.
Either that, or it's like a dying thing, because he even got shot to shit, the main character. Well, they all did, but he especially, even though he's the one that gets up and keeps running. But then again, this is also the world where, as you mentioned with, I apologize I got it wrong earlier, the Koji character, played by Gen Hoshino. He, like, as you mentioned, has, like, a fucking katana through his head, and has his arm spilled off, and yet he's still able to walk around for a bit after that. I think the movie's very much dealing with, like, sort of a comedic realism by that point. Especially, I love the fact that the movie ends with, as you mentioned, it's the shot of him running, and they go for a while, and then they call cut, and they break the fourth wall, and have, like, it's... like, he's just walks off, like, oh god, I gotta sit down, and, like, PAs start coming out and shit like that, that they just realize, like, this is all a show. It all deals with, like, sort of the magical realism of cinema in general. This is us putting on, like, a Little Rascal show. Only instead of, like, we're gonna be on stage and do wacky things, it's like, we're gonna fucking murder people in the most comedically over-the-top ways. And it's gonna be great.
When Homeboy's on the camera track...
Yep.
With the goddamn giant M16 machine gun, just spraying people. I was dying. That scene alone, when that happened, amped it up even more. All of a sudden, the camera crew people are shooting everybody.
Yep.
She's running around with an Uzi. He's on the camera track. I fucking... What is going on? And everybody dies. When Muto gets his fucking head cut off, I was like, oh my god, what is happening?
He signs it so great.
He signs him. This is a wacky-ass fucking movie. You could definitely see the Kill Bill inspiration. Which you guys don't have record said, obviously. Especially with the scenes with her, like when she's in the middle of all the guys. Like, that's almost a scene straight out of Kill Bill. I saw, like, a lot of John Waters-esque, like, Cecil B. Demented in here. Just, there's a lot of different influences in this movie. It's fucking wild, though.
Like, even during that first hour, you were probably not bored necessarily as much as confused, I assume, because the movie just throws so much shit at you.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even say confused. Just more or less like, how the fuck are they going to do this? Intersect all of this shit at the same time, and they went the easiest possible route they could have, and it totally works. Well, we're just going to make them all fight. Like, oh, okay. And it totally fucking works.
What would you say is the point where it got you on board? Was it just with, like, the big raid sequence, or was there a specific point where you're like, oh, I see where this is going now?
It's one simple scene. It's when they first get the girl back. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. What, Mitsuku or whatever?
Mitsuku, yeah.
And they get her back, and she's with the guy, with Koji or whatever, and the dad's beating his ass, and then she's like, no, he's a director, that's why he went with him. And he's like, then we'll make the movie, we do this, cameras. Lights, do you need lights? Like, he instantly changes his whole demeanor towards this guy. And I'm like, oh, God, this is going to get good. And that's exactly what had happened for me. That one little scene, then I was just completely on board from then on.
I'll defend the first hour, where I would say I really enjoy all that stuff, because I think it does a good job of building up a lot of sort of the weird Arrested Development for the fuck bombers. And then also how that even is paralleled with like a lot of the stuff with the Muto character. I care about my wife, but I don't care that much about my daughter at the same time. But I need my daughter to basically use to please my wife when she comes back. When he talks about the whole thing about, you can either have breakfast, lunch, or dinner budget. And talking about his various different extramarital affairs that he's having, compares it to that. I like the fact that they kind of parallel those two characters, where like one person seems like they're quote-unquote on their shit, but really they're, yakuza. They're constantly contradicting and being idiots at the same time, whereas the fuck bombers aren't necessarily the most mature people, but at the same time they have more of a drive and a passion for something that feels at the very least noble to some degree. Like, even no matter how much their action star hero is like, we're not doing anything, we're fucking failures. It's like, well, but we still want to make one great movie. Like, that's all they really want to do in life, is not even, like, have a huge successful career in Japanese cinema. It's like, we want to make one particular movie. It's a Don Quixote thing. Which I always, like, I'm always endeared to that kind of story. About, like, these complete nobodies who aren't going to really make it that much. It's the Muppets, it's the Little Rascals, like I mentioned. Despite all impossible odds, they just want to put on a show and make people happy and make a great thing. That's all they want, just one great achievement. And I'm endeared to that, even if, like that guy mentioned, the Bruce Lee guy has a point that they're kind of fucking losers. But at the same time, they have a drive and a passion that I could at least be endeared to.
No, I definitely agree. And you got to figure that poor guy, they've basically only been making fan films his whole life. He's not getting paid for anything. No, I completely agree with that. And, honestly, I think I might appreciate the first hour more with a rewatch, for sure. Because this, like I said, this was my first time watching it. I had no idea what to even expect. So maybe with a rewatch, I'd appreciate it more. And I can honestly say I probably will rewatch this at some point, even just because of that fucking last hour of this movie.
My favorite characters in this movie are really Muto's Yakuza henchmen, who are so on board to help him no matter what the situation. Like, even earlier on, there's that whole sequence where it's like, oh, hey, she's coming in 10 days. You know what? We gotta clean this entire place up. And they all go out like they're the fucking Snow White animals, just, like, cleaning outside. And you see it from the perspective of the cops and shit. It's like, what the fuck are they doing? They're just cleaning up everything? I have no idea why. And then later on, when they really want to get good at the film production side of it, it's like, we don't know how to do this, but we're gonna do it the best way we can. Like, I love that weird gumption that they give these fucking Yakuza henchmen.
We're not very confident, but we'll do it till we die.
It's so great. And then it leads to, like, my favorite shot of the whole movie is when, we keep not saying the main character, it's Ikejimi, played by, once again, apologies, Shinji Sasumi? The main fuck bomber guy. I love the whole shot where he's talking about, like, a script. Let me think. I could spend a lot of time writing the script, and while I'm doing that, they can all train to either use the camera, or how to fight, or how to use 35mm. And it's them on the beach, and they're all, like, it's a one-shot of everybody training or whatever. At the start of the shot, he is, like, starting to write the script, and then it goes over everybody as they're training to do whatever. And then it leads all the way over there, and there's something like a giant stack of papers next to that guy. I finished the script, and everyone looks at it, and they're like, yay! And everyone lifts their hands up. I love that shot so much. It's the whole movie in a nutshell. About how all these people don't really know how to do this very well. They don't have a lot of experience, but at the same time, they have this incredible passion. And that almost supersedes everything, and I love seeing that.
Yeah, that was a really, really good shot. I liked that one a lot. I really, really dug the rainbow blood spray.
Yes, that whole sequence is so great.
That whole sequence is so great. And then that also led into my biggest laugh out loud moment.
Right.
Where he's just coked, and then that guy just runs by and cuts his fucking hand off. Like, oh my god.
And then I love that leads also into, like, a heartfelt moment between him and Mitsuku, and then he gets the katana through the head, and that one guy's like, haha, that's what you get for letting your guard down, and then scampers away.
What are they being so lovey-dovey about? Jesus Christ. Oh, man. No, and I really do. I do like the part with the where they're cleaning as well. That part did actually make me laugh. Where he's like, it looks like they're just cleaning, and they're really happy about it. The old detective, don't you know they're planning a raid? This is just to distract us. No, it wasn't. They were literally just cleaning. Like, it's so funny. It's so funny. And I also love that one guy takes over. He's like, take off the American clothes. Only kimonos from now on. No more guns. holy katanas, and we're going to go live in the castle. Everyone's like, okay. Like, nobody even questions it. That guy just takes over and changes everything instantly.
To go back to my earlier point about how, like, the weird similarities they draw with, like, the yakuza and the filmmakers, there's a point where they discuss, like, all right, do you have a plan? Well, I have my plan. And then Muto goes into his plan, which is this also really cool sequence where they do, like, a pre-raid almost in a dream sequence, where, like, the rival yakuza gang is just sitting around and all of a sudden the walls break apart. And I love how, like, all the, like, obviously gory bloody stuff's happening, but that yakuza guy's like, oh my god, the line between reality and fiction is completely blurring. I have no idea what's going on. Like, just announcing what the plan is.
They're going to win because they're based in fantasy and I'm in reality. Fucking nuts.
Yeah, right. I love the fact that we're describing this. Anyone who's still listening who didn't watch the movie is just like, what are they talking about? What the fuck is this movie they're talking about? That's the thing. It defies, really, description. Why Don't You Play in Hell is a movie that you just need to see to believe.
I mean, at its heart, it's a comedy. There's
Yes.
no question. But it's a ton of different things, too. It's a Yakuza movie. It's a movie about, underground filmmaking. It's some weird romance story involved in there. It's a movie about friendship. It's a movie about, parents and the relationship to their children and what they expect out of them and how sometimes they expect too much and want to live vicariously through them. It's about kids rebelling against that. There's so much in this fucking movie. And like I said, that's the reason the last hour really fucking killed me. Because they got all these messages and then they just go, fuck it. Let's go brutal violent.
But at the same time, what I love is that, like, that brutality and that over-the-top violence, within that, they also resolve a lot of the arcs that are going on at the same time.
That's the tactic they decide to use. All these really big thematic elements, like these really, they could have gone 100 different ways, which each fucking element, and they decide to culminate them all in this just groundswell of blood and viscera. It's fucking insane. I've never seen something be done like that, really. I mean, I have seen violent movies before, but not to where, what? These fucking fuck bomber kids are so dedicated to making this movie that they're in there killing people. Yep. And his buddy, Sansuke or whatever, the one who quit.
Right.
It's in there just kicking the shit out of people and killing them. Like, and then they just start shooting off guns and shit. I mean, what the fuck is going on? And this poor Koji kid, that fucking guy, that poor bastard.
He just wanted to make a phone call in a phone booth, and then he got this.
That's just it. And then he basically got abducted. Now he's in a fucking Japanese, castle cutting dudes with katanas and shit.
Yep.
In the span of hours.
Yes.
It was not even a full day. He first got abducted in the afternoon, and then by fucking 10 o'clock at night, he's getting his hand cut off and a katana put in his brain.
That's another thing I love about this movie, too. Just how quickly this all comes together, and it just feels like so spur of the moment. Just like, yeah, fuck it. Let's make a movie by attacking this fucking place and filming it.
And the vomit scene. Oh.
I usually don't like vomit scenes, but I love it when it's especially one of these that goes on for far too long.
And it also looks so ridiculously phony. The vomit's not even coming out of his mouth.
Not at all, no.
You could tell it's shooting out of his chin, where the little hose might have pointed down, or he cocked his head back too far.
But then what makes it is that he does this in front of this place where the fuck bombers are like, oh, we pray to the god of movies. That's their big recurring thing. We pray to him, and we put it inside this little prayer box that's right above a little well almost, and that's where he vomits. And then he picks up the thing, and then he reads it, and he's like, "This is it. This is how we solve it." And he's once again very Muppety in terms of his motion, just yes, let's do this.
He looks like a Muppet.
He kind of does. But I wanted to go back to his storyline in terms of how do you feel about the Mitsuku character?
I thought she was fun. She's insane, obviously. The broken bottle kiss scene.
Yes. Was
a little much. What the fuck? But I liked her. I mean, she was a badass. There wasn't a whole lot to her character either, though. I get the idea that she was the kid, the toothpaste commercial, and the one guy was obsessed, and her dad is the head of the rival gang. But then it's you get her as the adult, and she's just a badass, and that's pretty much it. They don't really give her character a lot of depth.
Admittingly, I do agree. I prefer the younger version of her. Where one, she like just comes in like, I'm home, and then slides on all that blood, which is another great bit of this movie. And then she just slides in and immediately just meets the guy. She's like, oh, your mother's one tough nut to crack. And she's just like, the fuck are you doing here? Clean this shit up! And she's like, oh, I guess I should call the hospital for you. And then she goes over the phone and picks it up. Hello? Yes, some people tried to attack my mother. There's blood everywhere. You should probably come for, like, the one guy who's alive. Okay, bye.
That tells him, okay, now clean it up!
And even, like we mentioned, that opening sequence where the mom does her big attack on all the Yakuza guys, that's a way to start the fucking movie.
Oh, yeah, I love when she's chasing him. Well, she's a fucking maniac.
I know, yeah, right. And especially that bit where she attacks, like, she follows that guy up the roof and then stabs her over the graded place and, like, all the blood pours on the citizens.
So ridiculous. The arterial spray in this movie is, well, our next movie might have a little bit more hardcore arterial spray.
Yeah, admittedly, the arterial spray in our next movie is probably the least offending thing, though, at the same time. That's another thing. I would definitely, if you're, say, a horror movie fan, I would definitely recommend this to any horror movie fan, because it's about as gory as, like, a Peter Jackson movie. That's another thing I definitely got, is, like, a lot of Peter Jackson gore porn in this one.
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, I definitely agree, and I didn't expect it at all.
Yeah.
Like, you do not expect it to go that gory. I mean, and it goes really gory. I mean, there's decapitations, limbs being hacked off, people being shot to shit. I mean, it's really bloody. That whole fucking building at the end is just is red.
Yeah, it's red, but it's a new paint job. Several coats.
Yep. It's fucking awesome. I'd love to. Cut! The lights went out. right in the beginning of the fucking huge fight. They make everyone stop so they can fix the lights. And they're like, all right, face your closest opponent. Action!
That's another thing I love, too, is that, like, the Yakuza guys are also into it. Even the opposing Yakuza group, they actually call them. It's like, hey, we want to make a movie out of this. And, it starts Misku. And the main Yakuza guy over there is like, okay, I have this weird obsession with her. So I want to get on board with the show. Let's film the raid and all this other stuff. So everyone's in on it and it treats it somewhat like a professional movie set. Like the bit where he's fighting the Bruce Lee guy, and then it's like, cut! And the main Yakuza guy's like, you know what, kid, you're really good. I really like your style. I gotta go kill some people over nearby.
I love the sound guy just sitting there the whole time. The old man.
And this was even like the ending where like everybody gets like a weird curtain call of sorts when he goes over just like, thank you for recording the sound, and then takes the guy's like dead, just poured over. Or the best thing, the guy who's shooting the camera is like, amazing, you're filming even when you're dead, and then takes the 35mm bit.
Stupid.
But endearingly stupid, Adam.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
It's so warm and affectionately stupid. And I mean, we could go on for a while. This is a great movie, but let's spin this out into our final thoughts, because we got another movie to talk about. So, your final thoughts, Adam, on Why Don't You Play in Hell?
I went into this completely cold. I had no idea what it was about, other than your brief description at the end of last episode. So I didn't know what to expect at all. And I walked out of it. Well, no, I didn't walk out of it. I turned it off. Pleasantly surprised and entertained. It definitely is one that snuck up on me. Like I said, the first hour or so, I wasn't into it. I might have just been in a weird headspace, or just maybe, like I said, I didn't know where it was going. And then, holy shit, the crescendo of this movie, I mean, it makes it worth it tenfold. I definitely would recommend this movie to people, for sure.
Would you say it's one of the better discoveries you've had on this show so far, Adam?
It's in the top 5, for sure, yeah, definitely. I mean, nothing's gonna dethrone Moonlight, but
true.
Yeah, it's up there. For sure.
Both similarly themed films, obviously, in a lot of ways. They're
100% the same.
They both have beach scenes. It's exactly the same.
It's a beach scene, and there's people.
Yes. But yeah, so I obviously really loved this. This is one that I really treasure from my college days. And I was worried revisiting it, just like, is this going to weigh down for me a bit? And no, it didn't. It's still great. I still consistently really enjoy this movie a lot. Because it's like you mentioned, it builds so many big thematic drives and all these characters and all this other stuff. But then it crescendos in one of the most amazing big action set pieces of all time that still closes a lot of the arcs in very untraditional, weird ways. Some of them maybe aren't the best. Like, I do think that once they kind of hint more at the rival yakuza guy's obsession with Mitsuku, that's where, oh yeah, I kind of forgot he's weirdly into her. But regardless of that, it still is like such a consistently fun, silly movie that at the same time has a lot of heart to it. That it's one of the main reasons I love a really good genre mashup, because something like this can easily fall completely apart. But this one doesn't. It stays together with a lot of spit, duct tape, heart, and gore. By the end of it, like, the gore is keeping the walls together at a certain point. It acts as an adhesive. Yeah, so definitely, if you have not seen it, despite what we're saying, you can't really spoil Why Don't You Play in Hell. There's no real way to spoil it, because these are all just random thoughts just splurting out, like, out of a neck that's just been severed, and just like all this artisanal blood just all over the place. But before we get to our next feature, let's get a ESO podcast promo for another ESO show you could be listening to right now.
We are the Cigar Nerds, bringing nerdy sophistication and geeky indulgence on all topics, including movies, video games, science, and pop culture news, all from the Nerd Cave Cigar Lounge. Find us on iTunes, Stitchers, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are found, including ESONetwork.com and CigarNerdPodcast.com. So fire up a cigar, it's time to get nerdy.
Well, that sounded like fun.
Oh, what a great thing that was. I'm sure that show is dead on with its subject.
Exactly, yes. But how about the opposite of dead on with a subject in any degree? Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl.
All right,
So-
look, I'm sorry.
Hold on. Let me do some setup, and then I'll give you a chance to explain yourself to the court. So, this came out August 15, 2009, and it's directed by Yoshiro Nishimura and Naoko Tomomatsu. I know the Yoshiro guy, he, I believe, was the guy who directed Tokyo Gore Police, when these two guys did, which I haven't seen in full, but I've seen plenty of weird-ass clips. Especially there's a bit in that movie for some reason where a woman's lower half is an alligator jaw. Like, that's the main thing I know about that movie. So I was at least kind of curious about this, what I believe is a TV production, because it's rated like TVMA in all the places I was like seeing it. And it kind of looks like a TV production, though I don't know what network would air this, but Japan standards obviously probably out the window. Compared to what we know necessarily as dumb Americans. But speaking of dumb Americans, Adam, so this is your pick, and why?
Well, you gave me the choice for bad Japanese cinema, and this is one of the first ones that popped in my head. It's so fucking terrible. Okay, the first time I heard about this movie, there was a story about it in like an issue of Fangoria, and it was right around the same, like Tokyo Gore Police, Hell Driver, things like that were all out of time, and I'm like, Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl, that sounds kind of cool. A vampire chick versus a Frankenstein chick, and there's going to be kung fu and stuff. So all right, cool, a lot of gore and stuff Fangoria was promoting, which there is, but as stated before, that's not the offensive part to this movie.
No.
I bought this movie on DVD from like Family Video or something like that for the first, so like $2.99. I should have got a refund, but this fucking thing, A, is almost unwatchably offensive.
Yep. You want to explain why? Why don't you give people a plot synopsis, Adam?
Well, I can try. Well, there's a vampire girl that fights a Frankenstein girl.
There's a bit in the middle, though. I think there's a lot that happens before that happens in, like, the last 15 minutes of the movie, I believe.
Well, I mean, there's the cutter girls. There's the girls who want to look African American. There's just so much wrong with this movie, dude. I'm not even going to try to synopsize it. I'm really not.
Well, you know what? I will, sir, because I want our audience to know exactly what this is. So, the titular vampire girl, Monomi, basically catches her eyes onto this guy named Jugan, who is sort of like the typical Japanese anime boy, where he's just like staring off into the distance, and he looks so cute to all the girls, including he's currently dating the future Frankenstein girl, Kikyo, who is dressed in Lolita garb, which is like the loli or whatever the hell it is in Japan. Like basically the fetishizing of girls in like really skimpy outfits that are like over the top versions of, you know, young girl outfits. It's disgusting here to our sensibilities. But so basically the vampire girl romances the boy by giving him a chocolate for sort of the Valentine's Day. It's some sort of ritual that I guess happens in Japan. I did some light research about that. And inside of this little candy is her blood. So that starts him becoming a vampire to be basically her familiar, her Renfield, I guess. And this causes conflict with the Frankenstein girl, who ends up picking apart the various different subsects of the school's body parts, because her dad is sort of like a Dr. Frankenstein type, as he fancies himself, and also wears a kabuki theater outfit. The two of the subsects of the school include, as you mentioned, there's a group of young ladies who fancy themselves expert cutters, as in wrist cutters, who really like cutting up their arms because that's funny. And then another subsect, which is based on an actual thing called ganguro, which is these girls that wear blackface.
Yeah, but this is a little extreme.
Which, especially, I found out in research that ganguro thing, I figured, like, oh, is this like an old school Japan thing that's probably like been around for centuries and they're doing a parody of that? No, that was a trend that started in the mid-90s in Japan.
Yeah, but this is just so extreme. The prosthetics.
Right, yeah, there's one who has, like, very offensive, quite frankly, the most minstrel-like prosthetics that are blatantly awful, and she is the one that also does a lot of the sort of over-the-top rants at one point referencing Obama, yes we can, and Michael Jackson turning his skin white and all this other stuff. And the whole time I'm watching this, I just realized, like, this is Japan's attempt at a trauma movie.
Yes. Well, I think most of those kind of are. Like Tokyo Gore Police, Hell Driver, things like that.
Yeah.
It is their version of, like, trauma stuff. Just crazy gore and everything. But this one definitely feels more like you said, like a trauma thing. Because I could see this legit whole movie with English actors and Trauma's name on it. It would totally make sense.
Yeah, and it's one of the bad ones, though. Well, strike bad, because with Trauma, it's more just, like, watchable and unwatchable.
Yeah, there's no good. There's no good.
Right. We'll do a Trauma episode at some point, I'm sure, because there's a lot to talk about with those movies.
Maybe in February, because I'm going to go fucking meet Lloyd Kaufman.
Oh, you're going to go to a comic convention? You've probably met Lloyd Kaufman. You didn't intend to, but he just showed up behind you. It's just like, hello!
Yeah. No, it's going to be Lloyd Kaufman and Tom Atkins. I'm going.
Tom Atkins sticks to himself, though. Lloyd Kaufman is sort of just like, hey, go to the Trauma YouTube channel. Your
right,
face
exactly.
like,
fucking Trauma, fucking. Like, all right.
Sir, I'm trying to buy pop vinyls over here.
Guy, leave me alone, all right? Look, man, I work here. But to get back onto this one, so it's filmed horribly. It's acted just as bad. It's offensive. The gore is so over the top and fake looking. And the CGI, oh god. Like with that skull in the very opening scene.
It's about on level with, like, an internet reviewer.
It's like angry video game nerds.
Yep, exactly. It's so angry video game nerds.
It really is. It's like his production value.
Which you can appreciate, like, oh wow, this guy's just doing it all by himself in his basement. It's like, oh no, this is like a TV production in Japan.
Like I said, man, wow, what a bad fucking movie.
Right, and like some of these things on paper, if you were to tell me, like, oh hey, this movie has like a Frankenstein girl who pieces herself together from different classmates, or ends up putting those pieces like on top of her head to make her like a helicopter, and then starts stroming around. If you told me that, I'd be like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. But then in practice, like you mentioned, it looks cheap to a point where it's not funny bad. It's more just, it's in that weird middle zone where it's like not quite an Ed Wood production. And then also not like a so extravagantly expensive. You're like, wow, they wasted all this money on this. It's right in that middle spot where it's just unimpressive and not even fun.
Like the shark movies.
Right, the Sharknado movies, exactly. That's what it feels more like, is like they're kind of like really leaning into it in a way where it's like, huh? Isn't this funny? Isn't it funny? I'm gonna poke you with my fucking elbow.
It never works when they're in on the joke.
No.
It never does. And this is just... The one thing I did like, I do like the fact that just because I've never seen it before, and I mean, maybe it has been done before, when she bites her wrist and then she can create swords from her own blood. Right,
that's a cool thing. And I do actually want to say, I do agree that most of the acting's terrible, but I do want to give a shout out to Yuki Kawamura, who plays the vampire girl. I think out of all the actors, I think she gets the right tone for the movie.
Yeah, I agree. She's selling it the best.
Right, yeah, because she definitely has the in the sort of manner where it's like, oh, I'm adorable and just a scamp, but really, I'm gonna fucking turn you into my boyfriend, and you're not gonna be able to stop me. Like, she has all this control, but she plays innocent at the same time. I think she strikes that right balance. And I think particularly the sequence that I really dug, that I thought, like, okay, if the movie is more like this consistently, I'll enjoy it, is when she's on the roof with the guy, and she tells about, like, you know, last night I was out trying to get some food, and I ran into our teacher, who I guess you told about my vampiric abilities, and there's the whole flashback where she catches this guy out there, and she kind of seduces him into, like, trying to come onto her, and then she bites him and becomes a puppet, which I actually really like that stupid puppet that she becomes when her mouth opens up. And then he starts spraying blood, and she, like, showers in it. It's so ridiculous, but in a way I kind of found fun. And then especially the bit where, like, the teacher keeps taking pictures, like, oh, with a digital camera. It's just a fucking fight, like, oh my god! Click. Oh! Click. Like, he can't stop taking photos. And, like, he takes the last photo, like, and then it zooms out of that same digital camera she's holding on the roof of his face. And shit like that. Like, if the movie kept that sort of tone going, where it was over the top and ridiculous, but in a way that at least wasn't being, like, so aggressive with it, I would have had a lot more fun with it. I think that's sort of the nexus of what it should have been.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Aggressive, I mean, just being offensive to be offensive. It never works for me when that's done. I don't care if it's in comedy, stand-up comedy, regular comedy, action movies, whatever. If you have to be offensive, be it racially, sexually, whatever, just to get a reaction, then your script isn't polished. It's stupid. If you have to go to that's in your back pocket just to fill time, then I got nothing for you. It immediately takes me out of whatever I'm watching.
It's a thing I always go to is Steve Martin's amazing quote in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles of, if you're going to keep going like this, have a point and make it so much more interesting for the listener. Like, that's exactly what I think of every time I see one of these stupid fucking comedies that do this.
Oh, I forgot about that quote. That is one of the best. So yeah, this is technically, this is now the second time I've seen this movie, and there will not be a third. It's like,
no, it's a one and done for me. Though I guess we should also give credit to, I'll mention the whole audition thing. The main actress from Audition, Ahini Sheena, appears in a flashback here as the mom of the main vampire girl.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it is her. Yes.
Yes. And that whole sequence actually reminded me a lot of the one full feature I've seen of this, guys, is Meatball Machine Kodoku, which is great title for one thing, but also basically it's about, like, sort of these, like, weird, almost Borg-ish aliens invading, and they invade these humans to obviously create massive amounts of gore in the streets. And I think that's an example of one of those movies where it's over the top, it's very gory, but also it's a lot more unrelenting. I think that's the thing, is, like, it's unrelenting in terms of, like, the over-the-top gore here, whereas they kind of want to replace that with the offensive comedy, And none of that works, like, really well. Like, all the scenes with the wrist cutters where it's, like, they're competing in some competition to be the best wrist cutter. And then it's the same thing where, like, the Gunguru, the worst offender of them all, the main one, ends up, like, trying to do this because she wants to be, like, the best track star because, oh, of course, a black person would be the best at running. Would be the best at the sport.
Yeah. And it all falls so flat.
Yeah, or even down to the subtle cameo by the guy who created The Grudge as the teacher who keeps on talking about The Grudge.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is him.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus.
And it's just talking about, like, oh, yeah, the Grudge, which Ju-on The Grudge, which is remade in America by the same director. Great guy. It's like, we get it. You know, it's funny.
Yeah, God. So I'm going to cancel your Blu-ray that I bought.
Oh, my Christmas is ruined. No. It's all my Amazon wishlist was copies of this fucking movie on Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's like 300 copies of it.
No, this fucking movie, though, it's probably like HD DVD copies of it.
Oh, sure. UMD discs.
UMD. I can't wait to break out my PSP from 2005 to play it. Oh. So I think we're done talking about this movie. What are your just briefly final thoughts on this movie?
This is just a huge steaming pile of shit. I can't even call it forgettable because I even remembered the offensive stuff. Like I said, when you told me to pick one, this immediately popped in there. So it's not forgettable. I remember it. I did not remember it being as bad as it is. I knew it was bad, but this is just... oh my God, what a chore to get through.
It's memorable in the way of like PTSD drama where you have like brief flashes but you kind of ignore them and then you're like, you know, I have to confront my past trauma, I have to really go back to it, but you go back to it, it's like, oh no, it's way worse than I remembered.
Right, but I've done it now. I faced it.
Right, you faced it.
And I never have to deal with it again, nor will I.
Right, but you're the actual guy with PTSD. You were just like, hey, Thomas, let me drag you in and tell you my war stories. And...
Exactly. And now you're like, oh, no. Like, showering all the time. I'm so unclean.
You just wake up in the middle of the night, Gunguru, no! Oh my God.
God.
Yep, this is pretty goddamn awful. I mean, I'll give it credit for in terms of, it's not boring. The worst thing it could have been was... completely boring, but that doesn't excuse any of the offensive material. But it's just offensive, like we said, in a way that's like, it didn't truly like make me, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, as much as like, okay, we're doing this. Okay. Fine, I guess. It feels like a lot of, like the really bad sort of like Comedy Central productions. Like the ones that like, oh, people talk about South Park or Mystery Science Theater 3000 or any of like the really good shows that are on there. And it's like, yeah, but you forget about those shows that lasted like a season and aren't released on any format for good reason.
Yeah.
On an unrelated note, Crank Yankers is coming back, guys.
Oh, good.
What everyone wanted. But, there's a few interesting moments, I guess, but it's definitely, like we mentioned, it's very Sharknado-y, where it really isn't on the joke and wants to, like, really wink and nudge at you, but in a way that's just like, we're not friends. Go away. This whole movie has that attitude. It's the attitude of, like, the kid who you were friends with who loved 4chan, and you're like...
Oh, no.
Sure. Anyway. On that note, where we scored a lot of different lines, that's the end of our discussion of our two Japanese cinema movies.
We did way better than I thought we were going to do with
that. That's the thing. The moment I started watching this movie and the Gunguru people started coming on, I'm like, Adam, what'd you get us into?
Yeah, no, I know, me too. Oh, no, fuck, how are we going to address
We're already two white guys talking about Japanese movies. This is getting way worse.
Yeah.
No, but we tried to skirt the line, I guess.
I think we did.
If we offended you, we are sorry, but watch this movie and then realize that we weren't that bad. I'm just kidding. Don't watch this movie ever. But, let's get into our feedback, which we do at the end of every show and on our at DEDBpod Facebook and Twitter page. We ask all of you about, like, hey, what are your favorite, least favorite things related to whatever topic that we're going to do for the week, and we share it here, and then do our thank yous, and then we'll be picking our movies for next week at the very end, so stick around for that. But first, the first feedback from one of our former guests, James Rodriguez, in reference to Japanese cinema films he loves and hates, says, Akira Kurosawa is one of the best directors of all time, and with Rand and Seven Samurai, he crafts some of the most gripping features ever made, where runtimes hovering around 3 hours fly past like they're nothing. Also worth mentioning is Confessions, a tale detailing a grieving mother's quest for vengeance, which plays out in a manner far removed from the typical Hollywood actioner. The talkative moments are gripping before lending way to unfolding layers and will stay with you long after, a real gem worth seeking out. Jonathan Havden McHale, another former guest, says, on the animation side, many Western film aficionados would bring up Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli. I would go with Satoshi Kon. Myself, like surreal, psychological Darren Aronofsky films. Watch Perfect Blue. Thought that Inception didn't take the dream worlds far enough. Try Paprika. Want to see a romantic tale about Japanese cinema? See Millennium Actress. Mike Faber of the ESO Network says Shin Godzilla. And then Brian Kane says, there's not enough good things you can say about Kurosawa. Yojimbo is my personal favorite by him. In the realm of anime, I would go on all day. Akira is alongside Blade Runner in pretty much being the gold standard for cyberpunk aesthetic. The original Berserk anime is also something of a masterpiece. Did you know that Battle Royale had a sequel? I recently watched it. Don't watch it. I've heard. Yeah, that one's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. I never bothered.
Yeah, but I like Battle Royale a lot.
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't hate it. I just, the main kid really gets on my fucking nerves.
Okay.
I know, believe me. It's something that simple. Takes me out of this, like, world-renowned, loved movie. Yeah, but the main kid's kind of a douche. I hate it.
That's true. He's the one douche in that movie, too. There's no other douches.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. Now, do you think Mike, I wonder where he put that?
That's the thing, he didn't specify. I know a lot of people like Shin Godzilla. I wasn't a fan, personally.
I did not like it. I fucking thought it was so boring.
Right, admittingly, I've heard a lot of that is obviously about, like, the sort of Doctor Strangelove style satire they're doing, which there's moments in that movie I think they get that really well. Like, there's a great bit where they talk about, like, oh, hey, who's to blame for the Godzilla problem? And they passed along to various different departments in the bureaucracy, which is pretty early on in the movie. And they're like, okay, that's a really good example. Like, if it's more like this, I'm going to enjoy it. But then it's a lot of boardroom scenes that aren't that interesting.
So many boardroom scenes.
It's also a bummer because I actually do like the design of the various different Shin Godzillas. I like the idea that it evolves, and I like especially the sort of weird, monstrous final version that almost looks like it's emaciated, but it still is like the most powerful godlike being possible. But there's a lot of stuff I like about that movie. I just wasn't the hugest fan, but maybe worth revisiting at some point. Who knows? There's enough people that like it so much that I'm like, okay, I should give it another chance at some point.
Yeah, you go ahead and do that.
It won't be anytime soon. But I do want to second what Jonathan was talking about with Satoshi Kon, who was a great animator, who did a lot, like the movies he's mentioning. Perfect Blue is great, and did inspire Aronofsky a lot to the point where he bought the rights to remake that movie, but only so he could remake a specific scene in Requiem for a Dream, the bit where Jennifer Connelly's in the bathtub and she screams into the water, is shot for shot a sequence from Perfect Blue.
Yep. I've never been a real big anime guy. I had my period, my point where I was really into it.
Right.
I fell off. I mean, I'm not against it. If there's one that's on that looks interesting, I'll try it for sure. Like, obviously, I still eat up Studio Ghibli stuff and or Ghibli or whatever. Giblets. Studio Giblets. That's it.
Studio Giblets.
Studio Giblets.
We're frozen in the
bag. But, yeah, I like Studio Giblets. I really, really do dig Akira. I'd say it is the gold standard for, like, cyberpunk aesthetic. You know, there's a couple of the shows that came out that I really liked and things like that, but I'm not as versed on it as I think maybe I should be to really form an opinion on anime.
Yeah, we're a couple of what the anime would call weebs, I think. We're not otakus, who are the ones who are really into it.
Jesus, is that a real thing?
I would recommend, as much as I do agree, I love Miyazaki, I'm actually going through some of his films I haven't seen previously. Like, even, like, you all probably know about, like, Spirited Away or My Neighbor Totoro, stuff like that. But definitely, like, I just recently saw his first movie, Lupin the Third, The Castle of Cagliostro.
That movie's so out of control.
It's so fucking great, though.
Yeah, that's
It's
a good
like,
one.
oh, hey, what if like a fairy tale princess story got crossed over with a heist movie at the same time? It's so fun. But yeah, if you like that stuff, I would also definitely recommend the documentary about Miyazaki making The Wind Rises, which I haven't seen.
I haven't either.
But that whole documentary is so fascinating because despite making these movies that are like, just like so optimistic and joyous and kind of like so endearing, especially like a My Neighbor Totoro is like maybe the cutest movie ever made. It's so fucking adorable. He's such a bitter, cynical asshole who the whole time is just like, oh, I've made all these films and there's no point, and I just raised a generation of otakus who just sit around and don't even make films, they just watch them. It was a mistake. It's like, shit.
I know, he's real bitter, dude.
He's so bitter. But then he just makes like the most beautiful, whimsical movies and you cry during them. It's so great.
Oh, I know. Like, Spirited Away, that's my personal favorite of his. I fucking love Spirited Away.
Yeah, I love that movie. It has one of my favorite scores of all time. Like the ending reprise music.
Oh,
I
so
cry
good.
too. I just cry every time I hear that fucking music. It's so great.
It's like me with the Meow Mix theme. Every time I hear that.
I
For some
like
reason.
chicken. I like liver.
Oh, God. Oh, no. My dad didn't love me enough.
He never gave me Meow Mix. He just gave me that bastard cat of ours.
I want chicken and liver, too. Anime's huge still. I mean, it is absolutely huge. And, just... Okay. It's never really done it for me.
No, I'm not a big anime person either, because I remember, especially when I was a kid, like, Toonami was such a huge thing, and all my friends loved Toonami. And I would try and get into it with, like Dragon Ball and all that other shit. Like, I remember distinctly, this is like a memory etched in my head of, like, why I'm not a huge anime person, is I was just, like, I like to draw, like, especially Simpsons characters when I was a kid. And I had, like, there was this guy who I knew was, like, into Dragon Ball Z stuff. I'm like, hey, look, here's Bart as a Super Saiyan guy, right? And just him with the big hair. It's like, isn't that fun? And he was just like, what kind of Super Saiyan is he? How far does he go? What are you talking about? This is fucking stupid, Thomas. And I'm like, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, but that was an early turnoff.
and he turned out to be Stanley.
I'm curious why he was at my elementary school, and that was really weird of him to be there. I believe he was 75 at the time.
It's stupid, Thomas. Excelsior.
But, you know, one anime I did actually watch, one of my friends who was, like, huge into anime in college, was just like, okay, we're gonna watch this one, because you're probably gonna like it. It's called Kill la Kill. It's about, like, these people who live in this world where, like, clothes are actually alive and can transform around them, but also can like, have relationships with them, like, in a sort of friendly way. And this main girl basically becomes sort of the main opposing force in her school against the evil tyrants that also wear clothes that come to life. It sounds incredibly stupid, and it is kind of, but at the same time, it's a very tongue-in-cheek show that is totally aware this concept is completely fucking ridiculous. Which I guess is part of my problem with anime, is how self-serious it can sometimes take itself. Like, especially when one of my first attempts to get into it was Dragon Ball Z, and that show is 100% serious all the time.
Oh, and it's awful. I don't care who I offend. I know so many grown-ass men who still love Dragon Ball, and I don't get it. I've never understood it. It is literally the same story arc every couple episodes.
But isn't it great that they just spend so much time talking before a battle? Like, they spend 5 episodes building up to a battle.
Of this ultimate bad guy who's even stronger than the last one.
Right, which even as a kid, I was just like, so why did that happen? And I found out from, like, all my anime friends, like, oh yeah, so they were trying to follow the manga, and they caught up to the manga, and then the manga stopped being published for, like, a couple years. So they're like, oh fuck, what do we do now? Let's have them talk at each other for, like, a solid half season straight, and then they attack each other.
Oh God. And the fight scenes. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get out. We're probably
right.
Like 9 million listeners.
All you ESO people who probably love anime just coming on.
Oh,
here.
shit. I didn't even think of that.
All the fucking geeks are trying to listen to us, Adam. Jesus.
Sorry, guys. We love it.
We're so kawaii.
I'm kawaii for kawaii. Oh, Christ.
Well, I guess before we kind of transition out here, Adam, what are some of your favorite live action Japanese films?
I like Versus. Versus is good. Did you ever see It's a Joint Japanese American Brother?
No, I don't believe I've seen that one.
That's a good one with Takeshi Kitano and I think Omar Epps. That's a really good one. Of course, the Kurosawa movies. I mean, they're just some of the greatest movies ever. The Seven Samurai still holds up.
I saw that in a theater a few years ago, the first time I ever saw it.
Ooh.
And that was a great experience. I do want to see just more. That's the only Kurosawa movie I've seen, but I definitely want to, obviously see as many as I can.
13 Assassins.
13, I've heard, yes,
That's a really, really good one too, man.
For me, I would say just one I really want to spotlight. It's one I definitely want to cover on the show at some point. Though technically it's a Hong Kong-Japanese co-production, but it's just one of the most amazing films I've ever seen. Riki-Oh, The Story of Ricky.
Oh my God. Oh, I love Riki-Oh.
Such a great fucking movie.
It is, talk about out of control, batshit crazy.
Yep, and one of the rare Japanese movies where, we didn't discuss this, but we watched both these movies that we're watching today subbed. One of the rare ones where the over-the-top bad dub is the way to watch the movie.
Oh, 100%. You have to watch it with that dub. Oh, God, that's a good one, man.
That's totally a back pocket. We need to talk about that at some point. Such a great movie.
House is a good one, too. House is very bizarre.
Yes.
That's a good one. Zatoichi the Blind Swordsman's good. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
The most authentic.
Yeah, but Hollywood doesn't whitewash. No.
Nope, no, they don't do that at all, no.
Not at all, no. The Last Samurai is fucking 5'2" Tom Cruise. Anyways, I apparently have a lot of blank spots when it comes to Japanese cinema. I haven't seen as many as I thought I have. But then again, not following really anime, that's a huge chunk of it. Probably I think their biggest chunk of their film production. So, I mean, if anything, doing this show and doing this episode makes me want to maybe seek out some more.
Gives us maybe an excuse to revisit this topic in the future, even just do specifically anime as a topic, and maybe bring on someone more versed.
Oh, you mean like Jonathan?
I'm not going to name names.
Jonathan? I'll name the fucking name. Black Gendo himself.
That's his Twitter handle, at Black Gendo. Follow him. But I mean, there's a few other people who have been guests on here who are also fans of the anime. Especially, they fucking love that JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. They fucking love that.
Yeah, well, no.
And actually, before we keep going, one bit of feedback from Jerry Chandler that's more related to a recent announcement here, where they said Double Edge Double Bill is on the ESO network now. I missed an announcement somewhere. Congrats! I hope it brings you a good chunk of new listeners. It already has, and we appreciate you for sticking around.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you, Jerry.
Yes.
You're a mensch.
Yes, I'll definitely be seeing you at DragonCon, Jerry, which I'll be talking about that in a bit.
Hush, hush. Or no, why are we hushing? Let's get that out.
That's true. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and get into our thank yous. We want to thank Chris Oliver for the intro and outro music used on our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Emily Scarter for the art for our show as well. And you can find us on Twitter at DEDBpod and also Facebook. That's where we put out those feelers every Monday about whatever topic we're going to be doing. And you can also follow my own individual account at Not The Who's Tommy, where I do my own individual musings. And also you can find me at marianithomas.wordpress.com. That's where I'll do reviews and such. And also I write for a satire superhero news site called truesuperherofans.com, where I just basically do what The Onion does for the superhero news onslaught, with a lot of other great talented writers. I just recently put up an article about how Doctor Strange's sequel is going to get spooky with horror vibes in the direction of having spooky Halloween decorations. Yeah, which
was a good article.
Thank you. Yes, and shout out to Chad Oliver, who did the great Photoshop in that.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's so fucking funny. But yeah, go Check that out. And also you can hear me on the latest episode of Desmond's Flicks, in which I appear to talk about a Wes Craven double feature of Deadly Friend and The Serpent and the Rainbow. And you can also listen to Adam and myself on the latest episode of the Earth Station 1 podcast, where we are in the geek seat.
Yes.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of different things to welcome us into the ESO network.
Yeah, thanks for having us on there, guys. I'm never going to fucking do it again. Don't ask.
We deeply appreciate you considering us.
Yeah, all that, too.
And as I mentioned earlier about DragonCon, don't worry, folks, this is the final time because as you're all listening to this, I'm probably hastily packing before my flight to go to DragonCon, where I'll be doing some panels over there. Just one more time for all you in the back. I will be doing panels for the urban fantasy track and the horror track throughout that entire Labor Day weekend. First up on Friday, August 30th at 7 p.m., I'll be doing the Apocalypse Now, a Good Omens fan panel about the book and the miniseries on Amazon. And that'll be in the Chastain Room at the Westin Hotel. And all these will be in the Westin Hotel.
The Chastain of the Jessicas.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Great gag, you repeated twice. Yes.
Hey, man, hey. It's like a fine wine.
Doesn't age like Jessica Chastain.
You're in on it.
And then at 10 p.m. on August 30th in the Peachtree Room, where the rest of these will be, at the Westin Hotel, I'll be doing the Blair Witch Legacy panel, which will be for the horror track, and that'll be all about, obviously, the Blair Witch saga, the original film, and all the different films and TV specials, and all the ephemera that resulted in. And then at 1 p.m. on August 31st, I'll be in the Horror of Scooby-Doo panel, talking about Ruby-Doo and all the horror influence it's had. In the last 50 years it's been on the air. Can you believe it, Adam? 50 years of Scooby-Dooby-Doo?
Good Lord, it's still going.
Yep, in some form or another. It's like an elder god. It'll never be defeated. And then on the 31st as well, at 8:30 p.m., I'll be doing a panel for Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, the classic silent film, where I will be not only talking about that original film, but also all the various different other sort of remakes and spin-offs and such that came off of it. Obviously, SpongeBob will be a great big topic of discussion. And there will also be a screening of the film following the panel with a live orchestral accompaniment. Well, not orchestral. I believe it's just a person at a piano or something. Who knows? Come and see. Find out. And then on Sunday, September 1st at 1 p.m., I'll be doing a panel about What We Do in the Shadows, which will be not just the film, but also the recent series that premiered on FX, which I recently went through in preparation for that. And, man, that shit was fucking great. It's so... Spoilers for the panel.
So good.
Such a great show.
Matt Berry, I think that's the name, Matt Berry.
Yeah, Matt Berry and...
he fucking kills me on that show.
And also the dude who plays the energy vampire. That's such a great
Oh my god, what a good gag.
Such a good gag.
So good. All right, I'll save it. I'll save it for you. But oh man, did that have me dying?
Yep, and they even build on it throughout the show, and it's a really great first season. I can't wait for the second. But come to any of those panels or download the DragonCon app if you're coming to the show over in Atlanta, Georgia. If you're there, download the app. Follow me. I'm one of the attending professionals, and just add those to your schedule. Come and see me. Just if you especially love the show, please come tell me. I am not afraid of you at all. No,
not really. No.
And you can find Adam experimenting, attaching people together, I guess, in his basement. I don't know. What do you do?
I guess. I don't know what the hell I do. And again, I just want to throw it out there. Had to do it a couple weeks ago, but the audio quality, it might be a little spotty on my end. Because we tried something different and it didn't work. We got to do a little more research on it.
Yes.
And my laptop is what I call, it's the technical term, a piece of fucking shit.
Oh yeah, POS.
Not to get too technical, you guys. I'm sorry. Sorry for you non-computer nerds.
Is that the operating system you run on? Is POS?
Oh yeah, POF. It's a piece of fuck. I mean, it's a real piece of fuck.
Oh, you downloaded that program?
Yeah, I got that one. I think that might have actually what they crashed the thing. So I'm using my phone again tonight, And that's all. I hope you can bear with us on that for maybe another week or two.
Yes, and please make sure for more great content like that to subscribe to us on iTunes or whatever podcast catching format you have out there. We're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher, we're on YouTube. We're all over the place wherever you can find a podcast, including the ESO Network feed.
Ooh, I don't know why I did that noise.
I'm very confused as well.
Completely. Yeah, all right. Well, it both excited and scared me.
Maybe it's time we get to the pick it, Adam.
Yeah.
So we've reached the end of another episode, Adam, and it's time to do our picking for the next week's festivities, as we do at the end of every episode. For those who might be new, each week Adam and I each have 2 movies based on a certain quality that we rotate on. In this case, Adam has 2 good movies, and I have 2 bad movies that we've each assigned numbers between 1 and 10. And so the other person will pick a number between 1 and 10 of their own at a random, and that will end up getting us the random double bill of the good and bad feature. And this one's a bit of a somber note, Adam. We haven't done one of these in a little bit, but when somebody we really appreciate passes away, which for the record has been happening a lot in 2019, but they're all people who were just hard to really do an entire retrospective of their career necessarily. But we picked one person who died, who immediately were just like, we got to do this, especially because he's an undersung character actor. Rutger Hauer died about a month ago, and we were totally bummed by that news.
Yeah, this was a hard one for me. Rutger Hauer has always been one of my favorite actors, especially character actors, and he is the single-handedly gives life to my favorite all-time villain in one of my favorite all-time movies of Roy Batty and Blade Runner.
Of course.
So he always holds a special spot for me. And I followed him, and I was so excited when he popped back up out of nowhere in mainstream and Batman Begins and things like that. And it's like, hey, I didn't realize he was in his late 67, or was he? No, he was in his 70s.
He had looked pretty much that same age since around the late 90s.
Yeah, he never aged. He went from Blade Runner to Blind Fury and then kind of stuck there.
Yeah. He was 75, by the way.
Jesus. But I didn't realize he was that old. And this one sucked. This one sucked a lot.
Yes, but of course you have the 2 good movies, and neither of the films you mentioned are included, I assume.
No, of course not.
No. Yeah, those are more mainstream choices. But that's not your bag. But then I have the 2 bad ones, which we want to emphasize, like we always do when this happens. We're not trying to decry Rutger Hauer when we do a bad movie for a show based around them, as much as celebrate the wide variety of their career, especially for someone like Rutger Hauer, who did a lot. If you look at his IMDb page,
so much, and a lot of them are kind of stinkers. Not to say he's bad in them, but no boy.
Yeah. But those are my 2 choices. First, Adam, for your 2 good ones, I'm going to pick number 4.
Number 2, I have Lady Hawk with Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer and someone previously mentioned that I can't stand, but I don't mind him in this, Matthew Broderick.
Okay, I have not seen this one, so this will be a discovery.
Yeah, fantasies, magic, swords, horses, curses, priests. I mean, it's just a fun movie. I'm going to tell you right now, the most bizarre out there soundtrack you've ever heard.
Okay.
It's fun. And at number 8, I had Hobo with a Shotgun, which I think is probably his best later in life role.
Oh, I love that movie. I want to talk about it at some point.
We can.
It's so great. Oh, it's so great.
Redemption, man. Can always come back.
It could, potentially, yes. But now, Adam, for my 2 bad choices.
Fuck. Oh, no. I'm just going to go right at the end, pick number 10.
All right. This is one that I haven't seen but has a very terrible reputation. From a classic horror director. It is Dario Argento's Dracula 3D at number 8.
Oh, no. Oh, no. This is the worst fucking movie I've ever seen.
That's part of why I picked it, because I heard you really fucking hated this.
It's the worst movie I've ever seen. Oh, fuck me. Okay. Oh, man. What was your other one?
I'm sorry, you're so dejected.
That's all right. Son of a bitch.
At number 3, I had Omega Doom.
All right. We got one of his best and definitely his worst.
Well, it's the wide breadth of his career.
Oh, you are just gonna fucking be miserable. And you know what? It's worth it for that.
I mean, we haven't covered a truly god-awful movie in quite a while, though.
This one is really bad.
Okay, so that's the thing, yeah.
All right.
Well, that ends another episode of Double Edged Double Bill Adams. So on that note, let's make a movie. Let's get a Yakuza group. Let's have some fun.
Yes! Long live the giant condor. I'm never going to give that up. Well, I probably will. I just retired. That's the last time.
Well, it's appropriate for our Japanese cinema episode, then.
It is. That I retired on that. So now I got to come up with something else for next week.
Tune in to find out. Good night.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.